As each First Lady enters the White House, they find themselves being managed and their role being downplayed despite how necessary they were to their husbands becoming president. So for the recap, we're going to do it by First Lady just because it's a bit more simpler than trying to mix in all the themes, even though they all share some consistent issues. So to begin, we're going to talk about Betty Ford, who, as shown in the first episode, she was prepared for her husband to retire. He's been in Congress for a very long time, even rose to the point of being the Speaker of the House. But now, in about a year since Nixon put Gerald Ford to be VP around December 6, 1973, and then Nixon resigned about August 1974. Within a year, you see there's a lot of there's a lot of dramatic changes that are happening in Betty Ford's life. She goes from husband's about to retire to him becoming vice president to him becoming president. And it's a bit of a whirlwind for her, especially since the way the show makes it seems, she doesn't necessarily have the kind of close relationship with allies so that she has the same kind of insulation and the same kind of outlet as her husband has. Case in point, when she becomes First Lady, she has to deal with Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld, who you probably know from their names circling during the Bush administration, probably both junior and also senior. And they try to use this woman named Debbie in order to control Betty because the way it's explained to us, Pat Nixon, she was very conservative, very traditional, while Betty's a little bit more, well, she's from Virginia and she's a bit more, not homey. Homey's not the word I'm thinking of, but she's definitely more low key in a way that she doesn't mind dressing up at the same time. She doesn't think that a state dinner can't have barbecued food, even if it's the King of Jordan coming. That's a problem for Rumsfeld and Cheney, and they try to get Debbie to try to be, the middleman because, trying to tell the president's wife what to do could potentially mess up your political career. So it's always good to have a middle person, and them thinking, hey, a woman telling her is not the worst idea, so hence Debbie. And for a little bit, they get Betty to do what they want, but then Betty meets a woman named Nancy who is a familiar face, and with having a familiar face, Betty decides, you know what, I'm not going to do things as Pat would do. I'll respect the way she did it, but I'm going to bring myself into the situation. And one of the key ways that she shows us is through a state dinner for the King of Jordan, as we've kind of spoken about a little bit a couple of seconds ago. And with that, rather than canceling it because, Gerald Ford just became president, and, Donald and Dick think that, it'll be best to limit how much Betty could be a liability because she talks to the press and says what she feels. Betty instead decides, as Nancy talks about how important state dinners are, especially as Betty's role as First Lady, she steps up to the plate, matching her husband's style, and hits it out of the park, which we don't know how upset Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld got about that. Never mind if Debbie got fired for not being able to do the job. But at the very least, Betty was happy about the result. Going into Michelle Obama, it's almost an unspoken requirement that if you want to be a significant and real presidential candidate, you need to have a significant other. Whether you're gay, whether you're straight, or even if you're single, you better have somebody on your arm to support you. And part of the reason for that is they're an extension of you and an extension of your ticket. Yes, their name is not on the ballot for people to vote for, but they have a role to play. Case in point, Michelle Obama, the way that this episode makes it play out, when it comes to Barack, he came off elitist, distant, didn't really connect with people, but Michelle, she knew how to speak to people, whether it was just getting the youth base energized, the black base energized, either way you look at it, she was someone that was integral to him becoming president. However, like we'll talk about with Eleanor Roosevelt later on, while she was integral in the campaign, once Barack Obama got elected, then came the question of what to do for now. But rather than having a Donald Rumsfeld or Dick Cheney type to deal with, she had to deal with Rahm Emanuel, who I believe was the former Chicago mayor, and instead of dealing with a Debbie, she got someone named Gwen. But unlike Betty Ford, there was no kind of making the best of a bad situation when it came to Michelle. She went straight to Rahm, had a little battle of wits, reminded him of her resume, which was well accomplished lawyer, experience in the healthcare field. I mean, coming out of Chicago, she was just working for a hospital. So, in her mind, if Barack Obama is doing a healthcare plan, why not get somebody who's well versed, knows him, and based on a campaign, knows how to speak to people? Rahm decides to do as Dick Cheney did in Donald Rumsfeld, where it's time to limit the person who was an asset and treat them like a liability now, which means for Michelle, well, unlike with Betty Ford or even Eleanor Roosevelt, when it comes to Michelle, we don't get to see what happens after she took her stand. Rather, we just see her hire her former boss named Susan into her, what do they call it? Into her staff. And after that, we will have to probably wait into the next few episodes to know what came beyond that. For while we know, as Rahm Emanuel wanted, we saw Michelle working in a garden with her Let's Move campaign. What she did outside of that, between her book Becoming or following the show, we'll find out. When it comes to Eleanor Roosevelt, one of the main differences we see between her and the rest of the first ladies we see comes from her, having family that was previously in the White House. With Teddy Roosevelt being a previous president, she knows where all the little secret rooms are hidden, and she also has seen what it means to campaign. So while Franklin may be stuck in the White House with meetings all day, Eleanor walks the streets, meets with the people, and because of how the presidency and first lady was seen at the time, it's a major thing and not something that can cause political strife and perhaps solicit threats to the first lady. And I would even say on top of that, one of the other things that kind of separate Eleanor from the other first ladies is that she doesn't have a Donald Rumsfeld and Rahm Emanuel, any of those type of people who are trying to impede her interacting with the president. Yes, between Louis and also Eleanor's secretary Malvina, there is some vibe that she's being kept busy to not bother Franklin too much, but at the end of the day, you can see that Franklin still values his wife's opinion, yet at the same time, maybe because of machismo, maybe because he's trying to really prove that he is everything that she pops him up to be, he wants to still make sure that he, even if just in public, is the guy that everybody voted for, while still recognizing in private that without his wife and her little add-ons to his speech and stuff like that, his inaugural address would not be as big as it was. So in terms of highlights, the first one is definitely recognizing that the First Lady is a role elected but is not on the ticket. For, as said in the recap, the wife of any politician may not have their name on the ballot, but they are part of the package you are voting for. Eleanor was not only her husband's greatest champion, but she aided his speeches. Michelle was not only beautiful, educated, and accomplished black woman, which looks good for any black man running for any type of office, but she could also go toe-to-toe for her husband in terms of giving memorable speeches. I mean, really think about it. The term, phrase, whatever you want to call it, when they go low, we go high, is probably more iconic and definitely more repeated than perhaps anything Obama has ever said in one of his speeches. At least offhand, I can't remember anything that Obama said regarding, something that can be catchphrase worthy. So, yet, as shown, while touted out when it's time to campaign, no one really knows what to do with them once the election is over. So men, seemingly consistently through women, they try to take this bravado force that was getting everyone going and turn them into something that's simple and demure, that focuses on gardening and pretty much stays out of the way. Makes it so sort of like a celebrity. They're touted out when it's time to market, campaign, and and promote the bigger thing, but then when it's time to focus on the individual and what they think, they want them to just hush up because they're going to ruin everything that's been worked for. However, you have to applaud that each woman in their own way makes it work. Eleanor made sure her influence was felt even if she couldn't be in her room helping with the speech writing and all that. When it comes to Michelle Obama, you have to applaud the fact that rather than going through the middlemen and dealing with them, she went straight to the source who was getting on her nerves, made her case, and when she saw that they were at an impasse, she decided to not give him the finger, but basically decide, I'm not talking to you anymore since you don't want to listen, you don't want to budge, so I'm going to do my own thing and you'll deal with it. And heck, even when it comes to Betty, with a smile on her face, she acknowledged the traditions that were set before her and recognized the tradition as the backbone for everything that she could do, but she didn't allow that backbone to be steel that kept her in place and made things stagnant. Instead, she saw the backbone as part of the machine that could move them forward and make it so when it comes to the presidency and perhaps the White House as a whole, there was a bit of a more welcoming appeal to it outside of what Richard Nixon and Pat Nixon set forth. So for the second highlight for us, this is really just Betty Ford specific, and I think the reason why we have to just focus on Betty on this is because with Eleanor Roosevelt and with Michelle Obama, they're huge figures in history. You know pretty much anything you want to about them because when it comes to you going to elementary school, middle school, and high school, they're part of the story. At least Eleanor Roosevelt, when I was growing up, was part of the story. Obama got elected like when I was in the tail end of high school, but social media, everything else, to know Barack Obama, to know Michelle Obama. So when it comes to Betty Ford, I feel like it's kind of different. With the way Betty Ford is, you find yourself more interested in the history of it, of what was going on in Gerald Ford's term, whether it deals with the pardoning of Richard Nixon, when it comes to how Donald Rumsfeld and maybe Dick Cheney played a part in his presidency. And I would even say because Michelle Pfeiffer doesn't have someone who's as well known as Eleanor Roosevelt or Michelle Obama, she's allowed to play with the role more and make it more of her own, like it's a character, rather than having to adhere to someone who's well known and take on their mannerisms and all that. And then, as we saw with Viola Davis in the first episode, get criticized for trying to do too much or maybe even do too little in terms of getting the look, the mannerisms, the voice, and all that together, which, as I believe Jennifer Hudson said when it came to playing Aretha Franklin, is such a hard thing to do because for actors, you want to be respectful, yet also put your stank on it. You want to give a performance that feels real and lived in, yet at the same time, you have to fight against people's perceptions because they know who the person is that you're playing. So with that, we're going to give, especially because it's not as big as a thing now as it was in the last episode, we're going to give Viola some grace and just applaud that when it comes to episode 2, we see progress in a better direction, and with that, hopefully in the long run, a better show.